Members are present, and thank you for joining us online as well. Sandy?
Sandy Misowitz, Capital District Transportation Committee.
Jacob Beeman, CDTC.
Bob Rice, Mayor of DOT.
Greg Butcher, DRDOT.
Tom Tobin, Mayor of the Village of Colony.
Andrew Kreshik, City of Troy.
Jesse McGrave, City of Cohoes.
Aaron Gelski, Town of East Green Bush.
Laura Vick, City of Ruston.
Chris Wallen, City of Schenectady.
Susan Martin, City of Central Springs.
John Scavo, Clifton Park.
Liz Cornels, Village of Wilson Spa.
Tom Richardson, City of McKinney.
Mark Hammond, Town of Malta Supervisor.
Ryan Riper, Town of Wilton.
Chris Bowers, CDTC staff.
Patrick Jordan, Port Bucky.
Last but not least,
Randy Milano, City of Albany.
yes.
Mike Butler, Mechanical.
Is this anyone online? We have Sandy's doing the attendance. Give a few minutes or Carrie.
We don't need to go through all of them, but Steve Haney just walked in the room behind us.
Welcome, Steve. Welcome all. Taking time out of your very busy spring schedule for this important work supporting our four-county regional transportation improvements. Visitor issues. No one's pre-registered. Thank you. Okay. No one's pre-registered, but you still have an opportunity if you'd like to speak up at this time to address the planning committee. Going once, going twice. We'll move to our prior meeting minutes of April 27th and May 4th, which are online.
Correct. So just to clarify, at our previous meeting, we approved the agenda had a typo for the 27th minutes. And we actually were approving the 20th minutes. So we'll just need an action to amend the draft minutes to reflect that typo. So we're all clear that we approved at the previous meeting, the April 20th minutes. And now we're also asking you to approve the meeting minutes for the 27th and the 4th.
We've been very busy.
We've been
Hope
busy.
you're keeping up with us. Thank you for your attention and excellent support. Are we comfortable adopting these minutes for posting online? Hopefully, cross the T's, dotted the I's, and we're ready to vote. Motion, please. Thank you, Tom. Second by Chris. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand. Aye. Are any abstaining or opposed to adoption of the minutes? Hearing none, minutes are hereby adopted. Thank you very much. First item, and second up is the TIP fiscal constraint summary table 4 update. We're going to do this as a running story every meeting.
Yep. No major changes to fiscal constraint. We're still under programmed on the current tip for all 4 years. So we're in good shape.
With a nice buffer.
Nice
Plan
behind.
and purpose. That's excellent. Thank you. Do we need to vote on item B? Thank you. Action items continuing to enhanced mobility of seniors, individuals, disabilities program. Carrie Ward.
Yep.
Ready to present, Carrie?
Sure.
Thank you.
So this is a solicitation that NISTOP main office organizes, and then the regions, the MPO areas receive the applications and rates. So what is in front of you is the applications we received for Saratoga Springs, small urbanized area, as well as the applications for a larger urbanized area. There's enough money to fund all of the Saratoga Springs ones and almost all of the applications that all these staff for. There was one application that wasn't complete, so it didn't meet the minimum requirements. So that one we're proposing not to fund, but all of the other applications.
Any questions for Carrie on the 5310 enhanced mobility program solicitation status today?
So we would be looking for approval for your approval for all of the applications except for the Center for Disability Services one, because that dollar amount is over 500,000. So that would be approving to the policy board for their, be recommending that the policy board approve.
Policy board. Very good. Any further discussion? So total is about 1.292, almost 1.3 for the region. There's balance remaining of 735 is shown on the table. Ready for a motion? Andrew,
What was the issue?
Andrew's
For
question.
the Tech Valley shuttle that made it unclear.
It's literally, it wasn't the, yeah, there's sections that were didn't have any words in them.
We're making motion. Are we ready to vote? Are we ready to vote?
Did we?
You're moving it? Thank you. Second. Adam, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Hearing none, section 5310 program is adopted. Thank you. Item A, item B is the bike skills training, and Rima is ready to present.
Rima, are you listening in online? Well, I will jump in then.
Sandy can cover.
So we are starting a new program, a small program, but it's intended to be part of our safety education efforts, focusing on providing certified instructors to the League of American Bicyclists to provide some assistance to communities, nonprofits and schools to do some bike skills safety training. The grants are small in nature, but CDTC is going to be paying for the certified instructor. So that's sort of outside of the budget of the $5,000 that's available for programming, and it's a in-kind match for the most part. So we are issuing this solicitation. There's two types of trainings. You can do youth skills training, and you can also do adult skills training, and they're just different requirements depending on the audience that you're going to be giving the training to. But we're issuing this solicitation to see what the interest is, and if it's a program that's popular, we'll think about growing it in the future.
Supporting bike ed. Any questions for Sandy on the bike skills training solicitation? This is when we vote.
You will need an action on this.
To release this solicitation.
Correct.
Small but important program. Any further discussion? Questions? Motion to adopt the solicitation release. Thank you.
Joe? Just curious.
Tom, seconds. Thank you, Tom. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Solicitation is approved. Sandy. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, item C, 2019 through 24 tip amendments. Got, first up is a Rensselaer Riverfront Multi-Use Trail, City of Rensselaer, Rensselaer County, project R323. Date pin 1760.84, and Ventura Vix, City of Rensselaer, to present. Thank you.
Yeah, so we are just running into some issues with right-of-way acquisitions on the waterfront. We anticipate we're gonna have to do some condemnation, so we have to move $314,000 from construction to design incidentals and right-of-way, and we don't anticipate that it will affect the overall completion of the project because the project is capped, because of the work that will be done for the Livingston Bridge replacement project. So I think we're going to be able to get everything done on time, well, on budget. And I think that the time to complete the Livingston Bridge will work well with our timeline for the right-of-way acquisitions.
It's does not need policy board action, and it's shifting the 314 now construction design inspection. Any questions for Ventura on this item before we vote?
Bob, how does this marry up to the Livingston Avenue Bridge? 1.6 million, and there's $400 million projects sitting out there.
It's interesting. We've had conversations with the city and their consultant regarding, where it stands right now. They're trying to finalize the environmental assessment, and at the end of the month, there are a couple of public hearings to complete that, which essentially would give the design approval for the project. And then, with presuming that a design build type option for that between the consultant procurement, that makes it this getting underway. It really didn't make a lot of sense to push or advance the scope of the city's project with major site improvements that are going to be made on the eastern end of the new bridge. So it makes a lot of sense to get that piece done, and then the city can sort of work around that on the eastern, you know.
So that's what, this piece is one of it. This is like, can you go back up to the description?
This is
like
our
a trail
existing
that's gonna
tip
connect
project.
to the bridge, or is
You know, the way it had stood now, they were, if you took the timetable of the Livingston Ave one out of play, theirs was gonna go underneath the sort of eastern end of it. And not knowing a timetable for Livingston Ave, we said sort of, you know, go forth. And then when the design of this, you know, we would accommodate that, the existing trail that was there. But now if we're at a point where they're that closely timed together, it doesn't make any sense for the city to do something and then the Livingston Ave job have to tear up something that was just done or make modifications to it. So it makes more sense to sort of defer it this way, and the city's got other issues with the project. So, you know, it'll come together in the end. But presuming the outcome, if the environmental assessment is completed and the preferred alternative is selected, and then they, you know, DOT would look to get a finance plan and a constructability plan going. You know, the earliest is, yeah, you know, minimally maybe the end of this year or 23 where the design build project would go. So the timetables would mesh.
This required planning board for what reason? The percentage of cost? Sorry?
The threshold for the funding request.
Yeah, it doesn't require policy board, it just requires this body.
Not if the bridge never happens. Does this trail just stop around the area? Is this a continual hoping to get to Troy?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, that's more of a countywide
Yeah.
effort. But the new administration at RPI, maybe it'll be a little bit easier to facilitate. But as of right now, our plans only went to the boat launch where the RPI line started. So we're gonna need further coordination with the county for that.
It's always been a hope for the keep on the hard trail. Yeah,
Our guy owns everything.
all the tech part is going down, and then you get to the treatment works, and the railroad is a big issue. But then we've got the 378 bridge study coming up, which would also incorporate like that element.
Good discussion. It's going to be updated on these improvements of regional importance. Any other questions before we vote? Adam?
I think, is that the reason why the construction funding is decreased because of that potential synergy with the Livingston? Okay.
Anything further? Ready to vote? Motion by Andrew, second by Chris. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any abstaining or opposed? Once, twice, hearing none. Adopted. And next up is the 2022-2027 TIP program update, and Sandy will guide us on the status with able support from Jacob Beeman on draft TIP and funding updates. We left off last week or 2 weeks
Exactly.
ago.
So
2 weeks
things
ago.
have changed since we last met, but in a good way.
Always. It's a
This
dynamic
is good news
wave
story.
that we're surfing.
One of the challenges we were all experiencing was sort of the final blessing, if you will, by New York State on the state program, the state DOT program. We just received that last week, which means we can officially move forward with some feedback. If the folks listening in could be on mute, thank you very much. What's my train of thought? Coming back.
Good news. We got
Good
good
news.
news to share.
Yeah, so we can, officially move forward with building the draft, doing public involvement, sharing the information more broadly than this group, and kind of working through the process to finalize the TIP. At the same time, we also got an extension to complete the TIP update process. The ballpark date was August 18th. Our policy board meeting is September 1st. They were fine with us finalizing the TIP at that time. So what our plan is now is this meeting, we are going to finalize the draft program project list. Staff will spend the next couple of weeks putting together the TIP document. We'll have the TIP document to share at our policy board meeting in June. And then we will start, and at that point, they would take the action to approve the draft TIP and start the public review. So July and August for public review. We're hoping we won't need a planning committee in July, meeting of this group. 2 reasons: we've taken up enough of your time. And secondly, I don't think there's anything urgent on the horizon in terms of TIP amendments. If there is something, please let us know. Of course, we'll hold a brief meeting. But we're planning on not having a July planning committee meeting, holding an August meeting so that you folks can see the comments that come into date. Recommend that the policy board adopt the final version of the TIP at the September meeting and then approve the TIP in September. TAP CMAC, we had the understanding was going to be announced within these last few days. With everything that happened in Buffalo, the governor obviously is busy with other priorities. But we do think that news will come out probably in the next two weeks. I'm guessing sometime soon. And then we can adjust the project list accordingly. At this point, because of where we're at and the information that we just received and the lack of information on the TAP CMAC program, our staff is recommending that we go pencils down on the program, the project list. We can talk about and make sure there's no lingering questions, comments, issues from what we worked on in the last couple of weeks. And we're hoping to walk out of here today with, again, your approval of the draft project list. Jacob, do you want to walk through some of the other facts and figures we pulled together?
Yeah, so at the end of the last meeting, you might remember we were about $10 million over programmed. But that included a commitment from Saratoga County to remove federal funding, about $3 million of federal funding, so that could be freed up for design money for a couple other projects. So in the meantime, we've confirmed with Saratoga County that they've removed their federal request for projects 56 and 57. So that's about $3.3 million, which brings our total over programming right now to 6.6 million over. And as Sandy mentioned, we're still waiting on that TAP CMAC. Right now, we have 4 funded projects that are also TAP CMAC candidates that could provide relief for that. And that would bring us back to or under fiscal constraint. Those 4 TAP CMAC candidates are programmed right now with federal funding for about 10.6 million. So we feel like as it stands now with the TAP CMAC pending, we're going to be right about fiscal constraints. So the list as it is now works with no changes. So I guess the only other thing, we did have a few other, or at least one design project. Adam, East Greenbush, we had 286,000 for design that we were waiting on.
Yeah,
So that's-
we'd like to proceed with
Okay.
that. Thank you.
So with that project is a go as well. So I'm happy to go through any other questions. Open up for more discussion.
For strategy. Forward now. Other questions on what Jacob just gave us his overview background?
So obviously, we're entering a public comment period, which, this is still subject to change. This is still draft. Clearly we have the TAP CMAC projects to grapple with once those announcements are made. We'll see what the public comment period produces, and if any adjustments need to be made with new information, we can do that at the August meeting and also again at the September meeting. I will mention the Livingston Bridge since it was brought up. I mean, it is a very large, significant regional project to all of us. The fund sources are tentatively shown as state and federal, but not identifying specifically where that money is coming from. We understand that that's not going to be coming from the federal highway funds or the Federal Transit Administration funds. We believe these are going to come from the Federal Rail Administration funds, which are not competitive at this table, which really means we would be showing this project for information. So we will have language in our TIP document that reflects the regional importance of the bridge. Once we see through the workshops and the upcoming information coming from the department, how we can craft some language in our TIP document to reflect, again, the critical nature of that bridge and making sure that we show that regional commitment. That project, just for your reference, has been in our long-range plan since I started here in 1996. So that is how long it's taken to get us to where we are. But the good news is, it appears to be a solid commitment to getting it done, which is great news for the region. I know, like the Rexford Bridge took a long time. Some of these mega projects, by our standards, these are mega projects. They do take a long time to progress, but we had some good news on that front.
Sandy, we're gonna add it to this list because I'd love to see the DOT listed here with 578 million of projects and see our percentage.
Pie chart.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Do that.
Well,
So the pies are.
Yeah. We need our leverage too, look at the DOT.
yeah. Well,
You're obsessed with this, Chris. We'll invite you.
Go for a walk on it, it's not.
It's like the Skyway, we miss all the big ones. But
You need that bridge to get to Schenectady.
My bridge
by
tie.
Antrim.
There you go. I like the bridge tie.
Sandy, you have a question on this sheet that we're working from?
Yeah.
On the bottom, so are these like or under town and half of town of Ball, town of Wilson, Sarasota County, are these cumulative? In other words, they have the some of them town of Ball only have like one project, but there's like town of Wilson, is that 4.3 million include the $500,000 in design for that one?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. So these tables include the design money that you freed up,
Right.
do not include funding that you pulled away.
No, I just didn't, I'm walking away saying, wait a minute, I'm not looking at two projects that were clearly defined by themselves. They're included in a lump sum with them.
Right.
All right. But my deodorant's still working.
The document that's being shown on the screen right now does have some summaries. 'Cause, I know this group likes to see sort of, the big picture in terms of how many projects in each county. For the site specific, you can see Albany County got 18, Rensselaer had 4. But again, for Rensselaer County, that was more of a function of the number of applications we even had. Saratoga got 14 application funding awards, and Schenectady County 11. When you look at it, take out the DOT contribution to that. These are the local breakdown. Saratoga County received 10, Albany 8, Schenectady 7, and Rensselaer 3. Some other
We
facts
also
and
got it
figures.
per capita as well, just to show it one other way. Something that we haven't done before, but put together this summary just kind of for some other ways to break it down and help you guys kind of digest it.
And just to clarify too, when the TAP CMAQ is made and now we add those projects to the TIP, and it would be possible for me to merge them. That would be an action that we'd be allowed to do.
Yeah, bundling. Yeah.
We tried it with another project, but this one I'd like one pin, so we can do it one. We tried that one, I was working with Greg and Bob on it.
Yep.
We did it 8 years ago and we left them as 2 pins, but we put them together and it turned into a nightmare. But Craig Street could get a corridor, the whole corridor. So I'd like to do it as one and not A and B with 2 different
I'm
teams.
sure that can work out.
You're designing it that way, right? That's what we
That's
talked
the
about.
goal,
Yeah.
to design it and to move forward as one. But the more we leave them as 2, it's really cumbersome for me, and then for reimbursement, it gets a little tough.
Are you saying we have one tip number for that to look at? Would that be the case?
I would prefer-
Yeah, it would be one tip number, one pin combining everything. And
That's-
permit
that's
around
something.
bundling is encouraged.
Oh,
There's a lot of cost
a lot of
efficiencies.
economies of scale.
Yeah. Worried folks can do that.
So with the scenario of the TAP CMAQ, in question right now. We have 4 projects. Each could or could not be funded by TAP CMAQ, and each has a direct impact on what over or under we are on the final line. Is there a need to identify a project or two that should CMAQ go full for, and we have money on the table that a project should slide in at the end?
I think, I'll speak for staff, given that there's a $6 million shortfall, I think we prefer to wait to see how this plays out, because would have that opportunity if at the
At
end.
the very end.
Yes. We'll see what public comment comes in, what new information comes up on some projects.
Now, would projects identified just for design take precedent over projects that are unfunded at that point?
That would be up to the discretion of the committee.
I mean, if say all 10 million got funded, we'd only have 3.4, yeah. Remaining. All the uncertainties and costs these days, I figured that's not much buffer for
No.
the next 3 years of implementments.
It's certainly worth consideration by the body should design approval be obtained on one of those candidates, and there is surplus, and to bring it to the table, certainly, that'd be a worthy discussion.
Andrew, you said there were 4.
TAP CMAQ
Yeah,
projects?
You mean 4 for you?
No,
Within
that
or for us as a
in
body?
general are potentially eligible for funding.
Do you know, anybody know what 4? I mean, Smith, I know we're not.
Yeah.
Car Road.
Jacob's got it. Master spreadsheet guru.
Doing a heck of a job.
That's a cold voice.
Hopefully this has made this more understandable to all of you, which
Oh, yeah.
that was part of our goal.
Much improved.
So Mike, these are the 4 that are allotted or proposed for funding right now and are also TAP CMAQ candidates.
All right, now you're gonna have to help me out.
Oh,
Even with the
sorry.
glasses on.
So it's Town of Bethlehem, Cherry Ave Extension, which has design-only funding. Yours in Smith Trail, which has the design-only funding. Town of Wilton Traffic Safety and Pedestrian Connectivity Improvement Project, which is fully funded. And City of Cohoes Columbia Street Pedestrian Accessibility and Safe Routes to School Enhancements, which is also fully funded. So out of the 4, there's 2 that have design funding and 2 that are fully funded, but total of
All right. So the discussion, Andrew, you were heading with, and I'm sure others, what do we do if 2 of these are awarded?
Like 1 is,
What-
2 is, 3 is.
Yeah.
And which ones? I mean, obviously, there's a
Well,
large
the other thing
discrepancy on the
is that
funding.
say
numbers.
Ryan, he's got a CMAQ project, say he gets awarded that, then we sit there and say, he's fully funded here. Or which avenue do we go with that? Do we say, okay, does he go with CMAQ on that, and we remove it off this list? Or do we keep this on the list and play with the others,
Why wouldn't you go with CMAQ?
I don't know. It's a scenario, that's all.
But if you'd have to go with CMAQ, I think you'd give him up. So it's something you wouldn't.
Again, we have to keep in mind, as alluded to by Greg, that, this is a slim balance in the program. We do know inflation is going to be a huge issue that we're all going to be grappling with. I just heard on the radio this morning that China might be opening back up and oil prices may be going through the roof even higher than they are right now. So that would impact everybody's cost estimates. So, it doesn't, when we're talking about such a small margin, at least for this next phase, we might want to just hold on adding anything new, and let's just see how things shake out over the next couple of months.
Practices, dynamic, very dynamic. Doesn't change that way, but new challenges and new opportunities. So what's our next step? Sandy, address this, we have some questions, for discussion, right?
Yes.
And we do hope, you all took a look at this from your own, jurisdictional perspective, and if you saw any mistakes, any errors, certainly let us know, we can correct them. We didn't hear from anybody as I understand it, so we're hoping this reflects everybody's, some of the discussion we had at the last meeting. But with that, if there's no other conversation, we just need a motion to approve the draft project list.
So move. Second. Let's see.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Tom. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Going once, going twice? Hearing none. Progress.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you all,
Thank you
and
all
thank you
for
all
your
so much for your patience and your hard work on this. We know it's not easy and it takes a lot of your time. We really appreciate it.
Consensus prevails. It's a good process.
So we do have one more draft tip topic to discuss, which is CDTA's transit projects. Jacob, I don't believe anybody's around from CDTA today.
I think Melissa is on the call. But essentially, these are the ongoing transit projects that use FTA money, section 5307 and 5339 funding. And so we work with CDTA to put cost estimates into the next 4 years of the new tip, or next 5 years of the new tip for these ongoing projects. So again, these will be estimates in the new tip until each year where they kind of do their revision where CDTA knows the actual funding. It's kind of what we went through at the last planning committee meeting. So we just need to put these out here for approval so that these projects can be listed on the new tip. Melissa or Ross, if anyone from CDTA wants to chime in if I missed anything.
Hi, this is Melissa. That's exactly what it is. These are our standard projects, our preventive maintenance, our vehicle replacements and shelters that occur every year with the annual federal funding that's programmed. But we update the programming each year once we have the actual numbers and our approved capital budget. But these are just estimates based on what we anticipate the funding might be for each of those programs, the 5339 and 5307.
Any questions for Melissa on the CDTA transit update? It is on our screen. Any discussion? Is it a voting item or?
Yep, we need your approval.
Motion, please.
I'll move.
Who's that?
Patrick.
Second by? T.
Bob.
Thank you, Bob. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any abstaining or opposed? Going once, twice, hereby adopted. Thank you. Melissa and Walt.
Great.
We're into discussion items. Going quickly this morning. That's great.
Yes, we try to, again, try to respect your time. We just run through the status of planning activities here. So, on our website, we always publish the status of all of our consultant planning work. All of the memorandum of understandings have been returned from the communities for this year's group of linkage studies. So they are starting to move forward. We also received an MOU back from the town of Hoosick to work on their asset management plan. So we'll be starting to work on that project as well. We have a number of planning studies sort of in either the first or the second phase of public involvement right now. So you'll start seeing a lot of meeting notices from us. Patroon Greenway Trail in particular, there's a heavy push right now for some public input on that particular trail project. We also have the technical assistance program that approved the solicitation a month or two ago. We're starting to get some requests in for that work and some ongoing initiatives as well. The bus lane feasibility study. We're at a point where we have some draft concepts. We're trying to organize meetings with mayors and some high-level folks to share some of the draft ideas and how we got there. And we'll have a public push on those ideas over the summer. So there's a lot going on here. We're also working on wrapping up some what I'll call legacy CDTC projects, one of which is the transportation, what's the new name of the transportation and poverty report? The jobs access. We rebranded that report. So we're hoping, we've been sharing it with a few individuals in the region, and we hope to have that out for public consumption in the not so distant future. We're also looking to wrap up our Complete Streets Design Guide. We have been talking about that one for a number of years. We're internally doing the final QA/QC on it. So we'll hope to have that for, we'll probably do a presentation to this body later this summer, where we reconvene and then go from there. So that's kind of the high level summary of CDTC activities.
Any questions on the CDTC front for Sandy? Thank you, Sandy. Regional Planning Commission would be up next on summary update. Is Mark online? From Regional Planning? Hearing CDTA, is Melissa still with us? Melissa, Ross, anyone online?
I'm here, but I don't really have an update, so.
Okay. Zoom, same as prior meetings. DOT, Bob or Greg?
I mean, just a couple items. We mentioned the Livingston Ave Bridge, the environmental assessment is out for public comment, and on May 31st is the virtual sort of public meeting, and June 1st at Palace Theater downtown will be the sort of in-person meeting. So, and that will hopefully wrap up the environmental process and the preferred alternative of a southern alignment adjacent to the existing structure. The other thing is from main office planning, from DOT main office planning, Dave Reddick will be retiring after a long tenure running that shop. And Brian Kelly, who was the regional director of the Hornell office, but has also been very actively involved in the last 2 program updates in terms of our performance targets in particular. A lot of that Brian had been in a leadership role in those. So we're looking forward to working with Brian. And there's about a month overlap where they'll be there. So hopefully it's a pretty smooth transition. Yeah.
Just a question not related to any of that information, if I may. I received a webinar notice about a DOT Reconnecting Communities.
Yeah, that's one of the many discretionary programs. I apologize on behalf of our federal partners, but you're going to get flooded. Remember, there's 66 discretionary programs in this new infrastructure bill. They're slowly rolling out different programs. 2 of significance that have been mentioned, the Reconnecting Communities and the Safe Streets programs. Those 2 are out right now. You're going to start seeing more and more of these. And, you know, again, it requires not only you to listen to these webinars, get familiar with the criteria. Who knows if the department would issue its own sort of approach to some of these programs. We'll wait and see if that's happening or not, but all of it is application based. And so, you know, you'll have to think strategically at a local level, which ones you really want to go after, because there's going to be a lot of them. The competition is going to be fierce. And that's kind of why we were, in the context of the TIP discussions, moving towards this direction of getting some design work on the table. Use our technical assistance program, apply for linkage if you can. There's resources available in the coming years, but it's all going to be that same model of webinar, NOFO, so funding opportunity, and application. And the benefit cost piece of it is what appears to be the most tricky component of these applications. It's something we're going to look into even for our shop to see if there's something we can do to assist you guys in putting some of that material together. Once we see more and more of these notices come out and see where they're consistent with each other, that might help guide us on some services we can provide to you folks.
Are you trying to maintain a clearinghouse or anywhere on the site? I know we've asked that of Federal Highway. It's becoming very confusing with the names and acronyms and all the programs.
So right now we are compiling, our statewide association is compiling a list of all of these things. We do have a link right on the homepage of our website to the bill, the infrastructure law website where all of this information is posted. But we'll try to have a synopsis of all of the deadlines and different things going on as soon as we have it, but it is unfolding rapidly for sure.
So in my understanding, evaluation and decisions are not being made at the local level to these.
Correct.
Right, so that nothing involved, no volunteers at the federal level.
Straight to federal highway.
They may ask for a letter, if it involves the state highway, it's sort of the traditional letters that we've given support, but DOT is going to be competing for some of these as well. It's discretionary programs.
Yeah, you'll be going through a similar process to other things. You get letters of recommendation, support. They're very high on how you're going to finance things. In addition, with the benefit cost analysis. Now, what we found, because we're looking into the infra application, is that there's some very high marks that you get per linear foot of, say, sidewalk, new sidewalk, bike ped. Those elements help get a very good benefit cost score or help to raise it. So just certain things you'll find along the way.
What is the best way to stay on top of that in the meantime as you guys are building out that clearinghouse?
I found that Congressman Tonko's office, I'm looking at it right now, he's got federal grant opportunities, and he's got a link for U.S. Department of Transportation, and it lists all the current transportation opportunities right there. So that's.
We'll make sure that link is on our page as well.
And these will all get a notice of funding opportunity. So is there a way to subscribe? You might get inundated with irrelevant stuff, but.
Yeah,
USDOT.
USDOT has a listserv that you can register to. Our NPO association also, the National AMPO also has a listserv. So there's different ways to get notices. Also on the FTA side, if you're interested on that side of the house. There's just going to be a lot, and we'll do our best to try to make this information. I didn't want to flood you guys with a bunch of forwards because your brains are going to explode with all of the information coming. But we'll try to have a catalog of things. I think the one program that there's some of these programs are going to require the state to adopt plans. One of them is the NEVI program, which is the electric vehicle infrastructure program. The deadline for that statewide plan actually is August of this August. How the state is going to approach that, I don't even think you folks know yet. So it's unfolding faster than all of us can actually keep up with. But we'll do our best to stay on top of it and share with you information as it becomes available. But certainly use the US DOT website. We'll make sure that those links are right on front and center on our homepage.
Is there a listing of what's coming?
Yes,
So
there is.
and with a little description of what it is, I mean, 64 programs, I have to imagine that only a dozen at most would apply to us around this table.
Yep. They've only been going out, I would say, 2 to 3 months to kind of say, in the month of May, we expect these discretionary programs to be announced. That's kind of vague in that manner, but it gives you a sense of what's coming. So we can make that information available to you as well.
We're gonna fall there yet, but they're out.
Yeah, it seems like they're trickling out one by one.
And eventually they'll have a fact sheet on it, but in a lot of ways, a lot of their programs aren't completely formed yet either. And it's definitely an evolving.
Following this, are the consultants that are following this so that they can?
Oh, sure they are.
No,
They
I was
are.
wondering.
Oh, they are.
A consultant help you, identify something.
Yeah, for local governments, yeah, I mean, I think, you folks, particularly those of you that might not have a staff planner or someone who's really focused in on these things, I mean, that's something to think about. Even a county could provide that as a service to the communities in which you guys all collaborate. County people are the best. I'm just teasing you guys. But yeah, we'll do our best certainly to.
Steve gives me pointers.
But we'll do our best to kind of communicate as us. And if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us, reach out to Bob and Greg, we'll certainly do our best. We may not have the answers either, because again, the guidance is literally being written as we're sitting here. So sometimes this is a new way of doing federal programs. Personally, I don't know that it's the best way to do it, but we'll find out.
Yeah, when it was TAP, CMAC, Bridge, we had a chance. Even at 20, we don't have a chance. I mean, I'm guessing that, I don't even know if the DOT will be able to keep up with it, but I'm guessing it's going to be majority of state projects using this money because I can't see the rest of us being able to keep up with that kind of inundation of 64 applications. I mean, I sat on that S4A. You know, you got to have a plan, or you apply for a plan. You know, they didn't even know where the deadlines were coming from, and then the next one's coming already. You're like, okay, you don't even have that first one nailed down, and the next one's coming.
We did get one of the formula programs that we haven't talked about yet at the table. If you recall, earlier this year, we talked about all the formula programs, which is the core of the bill. The carbon program and the protect program. The carbon program, that guidance is out, and there is a sub-allocation coming to urbanized areas through the NPR. So we don't know what the number is going to be. We don't know what that's going to look like yet, but there is definitely going to be some funding coming to this table, the program, which might be something to think about.
Carbon stand for something.
It's a greenhouse gas reduction program, basically. So think about, you know, all the kinds of projects that are eligible under TAP CMAQ. It would be those kinds of things. Yeah. And we don't know yet, it could get folded in, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty even with that. Is it going to get folded into a broader TAP CMAQ solicitation? Is it going to be, how is the state going to utilize this funds? We don't know yet. So, but there is some sub-allocation, at least in that program, coming to the MPOs.
Any other questions or discussions? It's very exciting. A lot of challenges and opportunities. There's always been discretionary, Tiger, and all these other discretionary.
It's just the sheer number of them that's a little scary.
Addressing every stakeholder cohort, every interest
Yep.
appears to be addressed. So stay tuned, and this is a great forum to compare notes and see the latest. Where we leave off, let's see, DOT. Any other questions for DOT? That was a good discussion. Thank you for starting that. Next up is Thruway Authority. Anyone online? No. Next up is Airport Authority. Okay, address that. We're part of the churn with discretionary programs, bipartisan infrastructure law for the terminal, for the tower, for all these special items in the airport world. Backing up to the big view we bid, it was designed as about a $5 million asphalt rehab runway job, and came in at 7.9. So there's definite inflation factors affecting bidders. Callanians on hold, expecting that award. That's having some federal concurrences that should come by July. We're still at about 86 or 90% of the 2019 pre-pandemic. There's still a business and international cohort not flying, but thanks for flying Albany. Preserving competition and keeping the flow. It's still in the 4,000 to 5,000 passengers a day. And we'll be back to 3 million total passengers a year very, very shortly. We're seeing the trends being restored. Any questions on airport business? Sheriff, thanks for flying. Patrick, give us a support update. Sure.
Speaking around 12:30 today, so.
Nice. Early lunch.
For our offshore wind tower manufacturing plant, we were in front of Bethlehem Town Planning Board last night, and they unanimously approved the site plan application. Thank you very much to Rob Leslie and all of his staff. A lot of work went into this over the last 2 years, really. So much so that my wife peeked in a couple of times over my shoulder, checking out the Zoom, and said, "Who's that guy?" I said, "Well, that's Rob. Is he your engineer?" You know, how come he's talking so much? Because he's really helping us along with this project. So thank you very much, Rob. I don't have last month's numbers. I wrote these down a few weeks ago, but for the first quarter, port was up just about 20% on the ship and barge intake, and 19% on the tonnage that we've been moving. Longshore hours were up 3% from this time last year, and March was especially strong with about twice as many person hours moving product around the port as last year's March. So we are moving headstrong, and towns moved last night. We're going to be continuing to go out to bid on the project. The only hold up, probably a lot of people's hold up, is the federal government. They're about the only ones in our way. So once they get on board with some more permitting, hopefully full steam ahead once we get some. So,
Thanks. That's an update. So the progress with growth is very exciting. Any good questions for board?
Sorry, I was just.
Yeah. Let's see, anyone else wishing to address the planning committee at this time? There's a status update. Our next meeting of the planning committee will be August 3rd on the guys.
Yep, if we do need one, we'll let you know, so hopefully we won't. It's the best way I can put it.
Thank you for all your extra efforts this spring. Michael?
Just one item to note, we had for 18 years, we had consecutive planning conferences in the winter. I just want to let everybody know, plan for February 1st of this year. So we will go back to a all-day training conference at the Saratoga Springs City Center. Information will be coming out, from even the departments and people. That's seriously, that's good, and CDTC staff. And then for those from municipalities around, it allows your board members, planning board, zoning board, or even we have some council people attend also, but it allows them to meet their 4 hours of required continuing ed training in one day, and lunch, and 500 people the heck of a day.
What is that?
February 1st. We haven't decided yet. We will probably not go to surveyors or engineers this year. Lawyers, I'm not going to say. Just a chance. But yes, we probably will.
Very good, thank you, Michael. Also like to mention that before February 1st, we've got a May 24th Patroon Creek Greenway Study Virtual Public Workshop. Also, May 24th is the New Visions 2050 Virtual Learning Series. June 9th is the Regional Operations and Safety Advisory Committee. June 14th is the Active Transportation Planning Committee Advisory Committee. And our policy board is going to be June 23rd for our.
So I know many of you serve as alternates, not come, so mark your calendar for June 23rd. Quorum will be important for that meeting, given that we're getting closer to the 4th of July holiday week. And just to note, the Active Transportation Planning Advisory Committee, we're rebranding what was normally traditionally referred to as the Bike Head Advisory Committee to expand the scope of the types of modes that group
Address the growing trend for electric vehicles on our regional Empire Trail and other bikeway pedestrian systems.
Yeah, I think electric bikes, electric scooters, these new tools and technologies, these new mobility options, that's why we kind of expanded the scope because active transportation is broader now than just walking and biking. So what that looks like, and I don't even know how to describe those skateboard things with the single wheel that I've seen this guy on Wolf Road ride down the shoulder on it. So there's all kinds of mobility options that, maybe are unique, but they're out there and we have to think about them.
Modes.
It's really to redefine what non-motorized vehicle is.
Correct.
Fundamentally across the board, everybody's got a different opinion about e-bikes and such.
Yeah.
Going down the street at 35 miles an hour without protection.
Probably have to just put it on license.
I'm seeing a lot of electric motors on the Empire Trail, just to share that.
Yep.
Any other old business, new business?
One of the, we were talking about electric, one of the things I was talking with, ever since the city got their first station, which was funded through this committee 9 years ago, one of the things I'm noticing is that electric vehicles are being purchased more. There is I don't know what the term is, almost like has something like fear of going dead, the battery going dead. So people, I know where they live. They are driving 1 mile down the hill to Schenectady and they're charging because they're like, well, it's easy, I'll just charge here. But then they're leaving it charged. So they're not actually depleting the battery. And what I was getting at is now that they're more, we've added chargers, but not a charger per vehicle. So if this is some kind of a trend of people who buy them need to keep their battery always like topped off, I don't know how the infrastructure is going to react. I don't know if the app will react and say, hey, listen, you can't charge it from 80 to 100. You got to get below 50 because we don't have unlimited chargers in the city. We have a dozen, but I'm noticing it's the same people that are using them daily to make sure their battery's always at 100. And I'm going, well, as electric vehicles continue to, sell, if that's the market, if everyone wants to keep their battery at 100, I don't know how that works. Because then you have to enforce hey, we gotta tow you out of here, you're at 100. We're not doing that yet. But I've noticed that trend of everybody not charging at home, charging where it's, and then leaving, where you have to charge a lot more. I don't know, but it's an interesting trend I've seen.
It's also the trend. I was listening to something about electric vehicles and the states being pushed to develop their infrastructure. And in this case, they were talking to a representative from Montana who said, well, we've got 500 electric vehicles in the entire state, and we really don't want to start developing infrastructure to support such a minority that we don't feel is going to develop in the same way that it might in an urban hub. So looking at a broader national picture, there's going to be transportation restrictions. I mean, you're going to be able to use EVs in an area that's supported and then nothing else. So the great vision of driving cross country ain't gonna happen in your EV anytime soon, at least.
Can we quote you on that?
On the other side,
Yeah.
I want you to come back in 10 years and see how that.
Yes,
rolls out.
you may.
Well, that's the push with the national, the NEMI program and some of these other things. I mean, the market's going to get flooded with funding to support infrastructure development. So we'll see.
Yeah,
If they can get me a
Right,
Ford
that's the word. Right.
F-150 electric, I'll change my tune.
The trucks actually, the technology in the trucks is actually better in some ways because the vehicles begins
It's a
there.
generator.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm
My
sure
drum.
some of you guys know, we have our Capital District Clean Communities Coalition where we're kind of work on EV planning in the region. And right, I mean, there's still a lot of these questions out there to be answered, but we try to help fleets access grants for chargers and vehicles and kind of work through those questions. So if anyone has other questions, feel free to reach out to
I mean,
me.
it seems logical to have it on main drags, like the highway system. Start implementing charging stations there so that if you have a conversion of trucks initially, then that trickles down to residential use.
And that, like Sandy mentioned, the new National Electric Vehicle Program is really meant for, or at least right now, it's going to be focused on interstate corridors. So to try to address that interregional traffic.
Great.
And then the local charging is kind of going to be up to the municipality.
We do have the plan.
We do have a regional plan, it's a couple years old now, so, but it has probably changed. But we identify some kind of hotspots in the area. We also have a white paper that we worked with Town of Colony on that highlights a handful of different zoning regulations that can help promote EV charging and require actually John and Park have a little bit of influence in that. City of Saratoga too. So yeah, a couple different resources out there for locals.
One follow-up, how fire departments responded to these things? Because it seems that I talked to some and when it comes on to planning, either they don't get notified or they just don't know how to deal with it, because if you do have an incident that needs to be responded to by firefighters, it's like, well, the whole thing, if it's in a garage, it's one thing, if it's outside.
Yeah,
it's another.
I know there is specialized training there for EV incidents. How to access that, I do not know.
Thanks.
rental companies are driving. Purchase Hertz Company is now the largest owner of EVs. They purchased 100,000 Teslas or something. They have some other fleet, and they're putting 55 in Albany and Buffalo. Some rental companies. Any other new business to share with the table? It's 10:30.
We take advantage of the time that we've gained. Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Michael, second by Tom, all in favor, aye. Thank you all. Consensus prevails. Thank you for your support. Have a wonderful early summer. We'll see you August 6th.